Something has shifted in Australia's rate story. And most people haven't fully processed what it means yet. Because not long ago, let's say late 2024, early 2025, the conversation was all about rate cuts. RBA was cutting, borrowing capacity was improving, confidence was rising. And the property market responded exactly the way you'd expect. Prices jumped, auctions got competitive again, buyers rushed back. Then something changed. The cut stopped. And in 2026, the RBA started hiking again. And the question everyone is asking right now is this: are there more rate rises coming? And if they are, what does it mean for property prices, mortgage holders, and investors? That's exactly what we're going to break down today. So let's start with the facts. The RBA has already raised interest rates twice since 2026. The first hike came in February. The second followed in March. That pushed the cash rate from 3.6%, where it sat after last year's cuts, back up to 4.1%. In the space of 6 weeks, every rate cut from 2025 was effectively wiped out. Now, here's what the major banks are saying. Commonwealth Bank, NAB, Westpac, and ANZ all forecasting another rate rise in May. That will push the cash rate to 4.35%. But it gets more serious than that. Westpac recently revised their entire rate outlook. They now expect hikes in May, June, and August. 3 more hikes on top of the 2 we've already had. That would push the peak cash rate to 4.85%. Let that think in for a second. 4.85%. That would be the highest cash rate in 15 years. So why is this happening? Because honestly, inflation hasn't cooperated. The RBA's job is to keep inflation in the 2 to 3% target band. Right now, headline inflation is sitting at around 3.8%. That's above the target. And the drivers of that inflation are not going away quickly. Housing costs, rents, construction costs, utilities, they're all still running really hot right now. Energy prices are elevated, partly driven by ongoing instability in the Middle East, with oil back above $100 a barrel. And wage growth has been stronger than expected. The RBA made cuts in 2025 because they thought inflation was under control. Then private demand came in stronger than forecasted. The labor market remained tighter than expected, and oil prices spiked. So the board has done a complete U-turn. And they're telling us clearly through their statements and through Governor Bullock's public and net comments that they will keep hiking until inflation comes back to target. So what does it mean for borrowers? Let's put this in real numbers for you. If you have a $500,000 variable mortgage, each 0.25% rate hike adds roughly $60 to $65 a month to your repayments. 3 more hikes means around $200 more per month on a $500,000 loan. On a $1 million mortgage, well, that's $400 extra per month. And that's on top of the increases that already came through in February and March. So from where rates were at the lowest last year to where they could peak at 4.85%, a $1 million mortgage holder could be paying close to $800 to $1,000 more per month than they were just 12 months ago. And that's significant. That isn't cash out of people's pocket. And that cash is used to go into the economy, into restaurants, into retail, into holidays. Now it goes into the banks. So what could happen to property prices? Well, here's where people want a simple answer, right? Will prices crash? And the answer, and honestly, probably not. Growth will be slow and some markets will soften. So let me explain the dynamics. The supply problem doesn't go away. Australia has a structural housing shortage. We've gone through this before. We're not building enough homes to keep up with the population. Even if demand softens because of higher rates, there aren't enough properties to cause a true oversupply. That puts a floor under prices, but borrowing capacity shrinks. This is the main direct mechanism by which rates affect prices. When rates rise, the amount the bank will lend you falls. A buyer who could borrow $800,000 last year might only qualify for $700,000 now. That removes them from certain price brackets entirely. And fewer buyers in a price range means less competition. Less competition means sellers have to negotiate more. which means prices in those segments often soften. The most expensive markets feel the most. So Sydney, Melbourne are the most sensitive to rate changes. Domain's head of research put it clearly: higher borrowing costs slow things down. Buy urgency drops, auction bidding becomes more measured. And the markets where people are most stretched financially are the ones where prices are most at risk of most correction. Affordable markets may actually hold it better. Here's the counterintuitive insight here. When rates rise and borrowing capacity falls, some buyers who are chasing expensive properties get pushed down the ladder. They can't afford what they wanted, so they buy what they can afford. And that redirects demand to more affordable markets and property types. Adelaide, Brisbane, that Perth's established suburbs. These markets have been showing this dynamic already. So what about rents? Rents don't fall when interest rates rise. In fact, they often go the other way. And the reason is this: when mortgage repayments rise, some property investors, particularly those with thin margins, sell up. That reduces the supply of rental properties. Fewer rentals, same or growing tenant demand, that puts upward pressure on rents. At the same time, some aspiring first home buyers pull back from purchasing with credit tightens. That stays in the rental pool for longer. So more renters chasing fewer rentals. What happens? Rents go up. This is a direct cost of living problem for renters, and it's one of the ironies of rate hikes. The policy designed to slow the economy can actually make housing more unaffordable for the most vulnerable renters. So there's one scenario that actually changes everything. The rate hikes push unemployment significantly higher. That's when the property market faces real pressure. Westpac is forecasting unemployment to peak at around 5%. That's up from where we are now, but not catastrophic. But if it pushes towards a 6 or 7%, forced selling increases. Mortgage stress becomes a real issue. Prices in leveraged, investor-heavy markets can fall meaningfully. The RBA is trying to thread a needle here. Slow the economy just enough to bring inflation down without tipping it into a recession. And historically, that's a very hard needle to thread. So now look, I want to step out of the data for a second and give you my honest view on things, because I think the forecasts you're hearing from the banks are actually understating where this is heading. Westpac has penciled in its 3 more hikes, May, June, and August, peaking at 4.85%. That's the current call. But I think there's a very real chance of one more hike before the end of the year, possibly in November, possibly December. Here's my reasoning. The RBA's modeling says inflation doesn't return to the 2 or 3% target band until late 2027. Now that's a long runway. And every time in this cycle, the RBA thought inflation was under control, it proved stickier than expected. We've seen it happen repeatedly over and over again. They pause, data comes in hot, then they hike again. I don't see why this time is different. On top of that, oil is back above $100 a barrel. Energy prices feed into every part of the economy: transport, manufacturing, food productions, utilities. Those pressures don't disappear overnight. And wage growth, while good for workers, is adding to the cost side of the inflation equation. Businesses pass on wage increase through high prices. That keeps services inflated. And so when I put all of that together, the idea that we peak at 4.85% in August and that's it, I'm not 100% convinced. I think we need to see one more hike, a final 25 basis point move in the back half of the year. That would put the peak cash rate at 5.1%. And that hasn't happened since 2010. And if I'm right, the peak rate combined with stretched household budgets, low consumer confidence, and a softening labor market gets us very close to, if not inside, recession territory. Now, I could be completely wrong, right? And I hope I am. If inflation falls faster than expected, if oil pulls back, if the global trade environment stabilizes, if consumer spending drops sharply and takes pressure off, well, then the RBA may stop at 4.85 and start cutting before Christmas. That's the optimistic scenario here. But I'd rather plan for the tougher outcome and be pleasantly surprised than assuming the best case and get caught out. So plan your finances assuming 5%. Stress test your portfolio at 5.1%. And if rates turn out to be lower than that, well, great. You're in a better position than you planned for. So what should you do right now? And let's get practical here. Whether you're a homeowner, investor, or someone's thinking about buying, here's what the smart play looks like right now. If you're a homeowner on a variable rate, review your mortgage immediately. Call your broker, call your bank, find out what your payments look like at 4.35%. and at 4.85%. Know your number. If the higher rate creates genuine stress for you, now is the time to explore fixed rate options, not in 3 months when everyone is panicking. Locking in now, even if rates don't reach the peak forecast, gives you certainty and budget stability. If you're an investor with multiple properties, run a stress test on the entire portfolio. What does your cash flow look like at each hike scenario? Which properties are most exposed? If you have high LVR, negatively geared assets in sensitive markets, consider whether your buffers are sufficient. This is not the time to be passive. If you're thinking about buying, don't panic, but don't rush as well. The window to buy before competition surges is probably wider now than what it was 6 months ago. But be very deliberate about what you buy. Focus on established houses in markets with structural undersupply. Avoid off-the-plan apartments, bridge estates, holiday-let properties, and make sure your serviceability is stress tested at 5%, not just at today's rate. If you're a first home buyer, the silver lining of a cooling market is that the insane competition slows down. You have more time to look, more room to negotiate, but your borrowing capacity is lower than what it was. So get a pre-approval done now before the next hike to lock in the assessment rate that exists today. So here's what I want you to take away from all of this. Rate hikes are not the end of the world for property. Australia has been going through many, many cycles. Over a full cycle, 5, 10, 20 years, property in the right markets have consistently built wealth for patient investors. The mistake most people make is overreacting at the extremes. They go all in at the top of the boom. And when rates are low and competition is fierce, and they go full panic at the first line of pressure. The smart investors do the complete opposite. They stress test in the boom and they look for opportunity in the uncertainty. Because people buying in established properties in quality markets right now, at a time when competition is eased, sellers are more negotiable, when hysteria has died down. These are often the people who look back in 10 years and realize they bought at exactly the right time. Rate rises are uncomfortable, but they're not permanent. And history shows that every hiking cycle is followed by a cutting cycle. So when the RBA is confident inflation is under control, rates will come down, borrowing capacity improves, and the market responds. So the question isn't whether that will happen. The question is whether you are in a position when it does. So if you found this useful, make sure you subscribe because we're running a full series right now on how each Australian state holds up in exactly this kind of environment. Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, Western Victoria, each state has a very different story. And knowing that story could change where you invest next. Links are in the description below. I'll see you in the next one.